Bruce Serafin with Amco Polymers, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the final webinar in our series, A Roadmap to Sustainability for Mobility. This webinar will be focusing on setting smart, sustainable goals for your organization and will be presented by our Senior Manager for Sustainability, Adam Wozniak. Before we get started, a few logistics. We will be keeping all attendees muted throughout the presentation, so please utilize the Q&A feature in the toolbar to enter all of your questions. If you don't see Q&A in your toolbar, you may have to hit the three dots above the more, and it'll be there. And we will have the chat feature disabled during this presentation, so please utilize Q&A. If you're experiencing any technical issues, please utilize the same Q&A feature, and we'll do our best to assist you. We are recording this webinar, and it will be shared along with the actual presentation to all attendees, and you're welcome to share within your organization afterwards. So remember to input your questions using the Q&A feature. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Adam.
First and foremost, I want to thank everybody for your time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's been a pleasure to kind of work with you through the processes of sustainable design for the mobility market space. And as Bruce mentioned, today we're going to focus on setting smart, sustainable goals. So, we've provided you with information in the beginning of the series, talking about the technologies, showing what the differentiations are, where we're moving forward. And as always, this market space continues to evolve. So something to keep in mind that we are here as a resource to support you and want to make sure that you guys have resources available to look at design, help you make sustainable, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound goals too as well. So we'll get into the crux of the discussion now. Quick recap, Adam Wozniak, Senior Manager of Sustainability for Amco Polymers. We'll also have joined with us today Bruce Serafin, who kind of did the introductions. He's our Mobility Segment Leader, and Robert Nelson, who's our Mobility Segment Growth Leader. We're all here to support your specific needs. Please feel free to reach out to any of us. Our contact information is contained here because we're available any day of the week, anytime. Please utilize us as a resource. We're here to support your needs. Quick legal disclaimer, as we go through the details, as we've discussed before, the information that we're providing you today is as accurate as we possibly can. We rely on our resources. We also try to vet the information that's provided. Again, we don't intentionally provide information that's inaccurate, but we're doing the best we can with the information that's out there to create new content to support your specific needs moving forward into the sustainability market space. Recap in regards to Amco Polymers. So as we're moving through this process, we're an active plastics distribution and compounding company since 1955. Recycling and sustainable practices are part of our DNA from our inception. We partner with the world's leading resin supply bases, providing the most complete line card and selection of plastics that are in the industry. And beyond that, we can include engineered materials, commodity products, high-performance thermoplastics, elastomers, specialty resins, and custom compounds, and recycled sustainable materials. That's part of our pillars of our business. Sustainability is a major column that supports the entire structure of who we are as an organization at Amco Polymers. And we continue to build the assets that we have, ranging from more than 100 plus commercial team members, 4 market-specific development managers, one of those being specific to sustainability, mobility, healthcare, and electrical electronics. We have 5 field-based engineers that are available. They're best in class out there. You're not going to find somebody that has a better knowledge base than our tech service individuals. We've got 5 regions that we support nationally, fully integrated supply chain solutions, warehouses spread throughout the United States, more than 2,000 plus customers, and again, as we mentioned before, more than 130 plus employees. Our sustainability team is focused between myself and Gary Metzger. If you notice the M in Gary Metzger's name, he's actually part of the Amco acronym. Amco actually stands for Arthur Metzger Corporation. So we're blessed to have Gary as part of our team, and he's here to support us as well from a sustainability perspective. Please feel free to reach out to us with any questions or any concerns that you have. Before we move forward on the setting smart goals, it's important to understand where we've come through in this pathway to sustainable design for the mobility market space. So we talked early on about understanding the technologies and then furthermore trying to put them into specific applications. So just as a reminder, these are our building blocks of how we start with applications design development, how we start to choose what direction we're going to go and how we guide each other down that pathway. It's important to partner with Amco Polymers and resources like that we have with Ravago to support your specific needs, whether it's circularity programs, streamlined delivery systems, recovery of post-consumer or post-industrial products, lightweighting, finding ocean-based products. All of these are essential as building blocks to make your pathway specific to your needs. And having these, it gives us a differentiated advantage. And then you as a customer and as a partner gives you a differentiated approach on how to move forward. So again, these are where we're at. And it's also important for us to continue to do collaborative efforts through the Plastics Recycler Association, through EcoVadis third-party validation, Healthcare Plastics Recycling Council, the Manufacturing Association of Plastic Processors. It's through these collaborative efforts that we gain our knowledge, but it's also how we build a collective experience to move forward and move that needle closer to carbon reduction and greenhouse gas reductions. Keeping in mind, we keep this into, 5 simplistic buckets. There's a lot of detail that goes into each of these buckets, but when we're kind of talking through these specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound, all of these components play a major factor in there. So it's important for us to at least keep it simplified at first, and then we start to branch off into more defined, granular approaches in developing the pathway for your specific needs and your customers' needs. So we do need all of these technologies: post-consumer recycle, post-industrial recycle, bioattributed mass balance polymerization, advanced molecular recycling, and intelligent design. And then beyond that, there's multiple others that we can add into those specific streams depending upon what your needs are. So with that, let's talk about the acronym SMART. So with SMART being the S being specific. So, this is, what are you exactly trying to achieve? And, I put in here that, we should be science-based on how we choose the specificity of what we're going to be doing, but science-based information is going to be required not just for the S, but is also going to be required for measurability, attainability, relevancy, and time-bound requirements. The products that you're looking at, when we choose an application, we want to make sure that it's measurable. So if we don't have measurements on the technologies of where we're starting, for instance, if we're starting with the polypropylene that's conventional crude oil produced, where is our starting point? And if we move into a post-consumer recycled product and choose that particular material, how do we know we've reached our goal? So if our specific goal is to be at 50% reduction of carbon gas output or greenhouse gas output, how are we measuring? How do we know that we're there? So we have to have stage gate goals in place, but we need to make sure that we can measure where we are and where we're moving towards in the future, and tracking it is very important. So attainability, is this something that's possible to achieve? So we want to make sure that, it's great to have an altruistic goal of reducing carbon in your scope 3 emissions by 50%, but does the technology exist to get you there, or is it close? It's important for us to understand the attainability, and it's also important for us to work with companies like Amco to help make that determination, because we can tell you right off the gate whether or not there's life cycle assessment available, whether or not there's technologies that can meet your specific needs and the demands of your customers. Relevant, we need to make sure that, is this going to contribute to your growth and your recognition, but is it relevant to your customer base? What is your customers asking for? What is the market space asking for? What are the laws and legislations that are coming into place, and how are we going to address those? So the relevancy is a key play in the discussion of how we're choosing these applications and moving forward. And these are things that are just bigger scope for discussion, but it's important for us to get down to those granular levels so that we can meet all the demands and needs. And then last but not least, they need to be time bound. Can you implement this? How fast can you achieve it? When do you want to achieve it by? Is your goal 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, or is it something that we need to do today? The great news is that we've got technologies available from a commercial capacity that can meet your demands today. And that's something that's important for everybody to walk away with this discussion from, is that technology has advanced rapidly. We see new products offered into the market space daily and sometimes hourly. And as the relevancy of these particular products are vetted and confirmed, we are going to offer those out to our customers and support them with them. So getting into the specificity, what is your organization trying to achieve? And the goals, when we get to the specific range, These goals have to be clear and easy to communicate. They have to have consistent language. If your customer wants to reduce your carbon emissions, what is your goal going to be? Are you going to do 4.2% annually to stay within the Paris Accord or the scientific-based technology information? Or are we looking at something bigger scope, like scope 1 and scope 2 first? Are we going to do it through intelligent design? We need to be very granular when we lay these things out. Do you want to call out that you're going to look for your scope 3 emissions to be reduced by 47%? All specific. But when we look at these specific things, the important thing to understand is as we open up the door to looking at sustainable solutions, we need to have a transformative mindset. So transformative means that we need to be able to think outside of the box, but also within the constraints of what's available in the market space today. Really what we need to do is we need to identify the technologies that are going to meet your goals. So you have a specific goal, but what specific technology are you going to incorporate? And how is it going to play into the overall message that you want to send to the market space? And then how is this going to benefit your organization and increase brand value? Value proposition and value as a sustainable brand owner is very important today. 3 out of 4 consumers choose sustainable suppliers over non-sustainable brands. So being active in moving into these things is very important. Engagement with your Amco representative or with the team that we have on the call today is key in moving forward because we can help you get off that starting block faster than what you anticipate. We want you as a customer or as a collaborator to become a market leader, and we're here to shape that market space with you. So now is the time to get involved because the technologies continue to emerge, but we have commercial capacities available. And then also keeping in mind that, there's measurements in place today. So 41% of the capital funding that's out there in the market space today, depending upon the branch or the banks that are out there, are utilizing decarbonization as a qualifying lever. So whether or not we see it directly in front of us today, it's coming, and it's going to be coming very aggressively if we don't get out in front of it. And last but not least, keeping in mind specific legislation. So if your component is a packaging has packaging around it, or if your component it needs to be meet a mandatory minimum recycled content per a specific state or a specific region, it's important to understand whether or not there's going to be extended producer responsibility in play, or whether or not there's a mandatory minimum recycling content that's going to affect the packaging or the component that you make. So this is why it's important to be very specific to where we can zero in on what your specific needs are, because the more information that we're given up front, the faster we can help you move forward in your efforts to become sustainable in the applications you create and produce today. So, again, measurability, how do we know when we've achieved it? So setting the goals is very important, but making sure that these goals are measurable. It's important to make sure that, to the public and to shareholders and consumers, it reinforces your commitments. But having measurements and having measurable details available to them helps to reinforce the significance of what you're trying to achieve. At minimum, they need to be communicated to your employees too as well. So when we look at sustainability opportunities, we want to make sure that it's being communicated to the broader organization. Because if we don't have all divisions within your organization moving towards that sustainability effort, we're going to become stagnant, and it's going to be very difficult to advance them. But when we have adaptation and understanding within the organization, that's why education is very important. And Amco Polymers is here to help you with the education with your organization to move forward so that the process is smoother. Again, if we just have specific concepts saying we want to put recycled content, that's fine and good. But when we get down to that granular level, having everybody understand what the percentage goals are going to be, having everyone understand how you're going to get there, and having that roadmap or that pathway laid out is very key to getting things integrated and move through the system as seamlessly as possible. We need to measure the performance over time. So we talked about science-based targets initiatives. It's important. We need to do benchmarking, assessing your current materials versus the sustainable solutions. Traceability is also going to be key. And we'll talk a little bit again in regards to ISSC Plus certification and third-party certification. We also need to ensure greater accountability. Claiming that there's recycled content in your products is no longer going to be enough. It's great that we can say that there's intrinsic recycled content in there, but the statements need to be quantifiable. They need to be specific. They need to be measurable. And the percentages of recycled content must be clear to avoid accusations of greenwashing. We work within an industry that has a very negative appeal to it just from general consumers because they feel that we're contributing to the problem as to more solving the issues. And the fact of the matter is that our industry and our organizations have done more to sustainable efforts in regards to comparison to other materials. That being said, we need to have quantifiable, specific, measurable data that we can share with them. And that helps to avoid that concept of greenwashing. Understanding the technologies first and foremost is very important, but being able to display them in a consistent fashion and letting them know what the net benefits are with scientific data backing it up, like life cycle analysis or product carbon footprint, is huge. Again, talking about ISSC Plus certification, it's important to understand that Amco Polymers is a ISSC Plus, so International Sustainability Carbon Credit Certification system. It's a third-party vetted certification in which the materials that we bring in through our supplier partners are also ISSC Plus certified, or they come with a different third-party certifying body certificate. And having this information is very important for you to handle your chain of custody and making claims to your customers and your customers' customers. In turn, we'll talk about that further in regards to whether or not your organization needs to be ISSC Plus. It's something that we want everyone to consider, but we also need to make sure that we have chain of custody that's being followed across all different divisions. And again, it's necessary for end user claims. It's necessary for legislation if we're challenged by a legal body to have this data supported in there, and having a system in place to support it is going to be key. So attainability, is this something that's possible to achieve? And what we want to do is we want to look at, the business integration, but we also have to look at the commercially available technologies. Amco, I like to say that we have the broadest bandwidth of sustainable materials in the market space. And I think that's significant from a competitive market space standpoint. But, from a leadership perspective, we also have to work with you and your organization to get employee buy-in. We need consistent communication and integration. So the terms that we use are very imperative. Lots of terms that are out there and they can be very confusing. So we need to be able to explain those consistently. We're here to help you do that from an explanatory or an explanation standpoint. We need investment, capital investment into the resources, and we need education. And then, also, as we talked about before, do the technologies exist today, or do we have to create? The great news is that the technologies are here. We've got technologies to meet the widest range of brand specific requirements and properties, and we can meet color, we can meet regulatory compliancy, we can meet all those things. So that's there, and it's going to continue to evolve. In some cases, though, there are going to be some things that we still have to create. That's what we're here to do with you as an organization. Data management. So again, we talked about traceability, but it does play into the attainable component. Is there traceable systems that are available? How am I going to track and trace it? And what are my supplier partners going to do to help me in this effort? So we need to identify experts to collect and analyze accurate data. Amco is here to support you in those efforts. We also need to identify internal employees within your organizations that are going to keep track of this data and how it's going to be met and also be proclaimed to the market space. So having quality data and management insights is going to guide performance. And then disclosure of the reporting process. It's important to use goals as a central theme of reporting and to add such substance and proof of action. How we report and the information that we report really puts the proof in the pudding for our customers and for our OEM brand partners. So going along with attainability, looking at those buckets that we showed you early on, this is how we start to kind of guide that pathway. And this is, again, fairly rudimentary on how to start, but at least gives you a scope of, I need a natural application. I don't want to sacrifice my physical property. What are my options that are there? And what does it mean to choose bioattributed versus advanced molecular recycled? These are at least a guideline to start your path and then provide information to your Amco support team to help you make decisions on how to build that pathway, how to construct it, how to keep the weeds out of that pathway, and also to shine a light down that pathway to help you get to your goals more efficiently within a time-bound methodology. If we want to get more granular, this is something that I created to make available to everyone. And the important thing here is there's a lot of data, a lot of information. It is for sure an eye chart. But when we start to make these goals and whether or not they're attainable, we need to understand the technologies that are available out there. And so what we try to do here is put some examples. If you choose mechanical recycling, that number is even wider than that today, but we say 60 to 80% reduction in greenhouse gas or carbon. Post-industrial, there's limited data. Bioattributed mass balance is a huge player in the market space, and it's important for us to continue to move forward. And sustainable technologies can give you anywhere between 25 to 100% carbon neutral or carbon neutrality based on the bio content that you have in your products. Looking at the advanced technologies, what's the right advanced molecular technology for you? This can be confusing, and that's why we're here to kind of support you through the process. But it's also important to understand whether or not the technology that you're choosing is going to give you reduced quality of your performance plastics or your polymers. Mechanical recycling has multiple heat histories. So we have to consider the integration of your product in a transformative mindset to where we either have to redesign or can it be used within the existing specifications that are there today. And then beyond that, looking at whether or not there's reduced quality, it helps you to understand where to go. Some people ask about recycled content. Defining the recycled content is also very important. Does it come from a post-consumer end-of-life scenario, or is it post-industrial, or does it come from a bioattributed waste byproduct, or the advanced recycling? And then, looking at the intrinsic value of what does this do to look at life on land, life on water, those UN goals for the attaining of the goals that we want to reach as a community towards net zero decarbonization is very important. We need to make sure that, whether or not there's post-consumer recycled contained within, or where does the resource come from, or that recycled content, does that give me a bioattributed feedstock that actually helps to get us away from carbon-based technologies like crude or light petroleum feed streams or natural gases? It's all important from the intrinsic value on how we present it to the customers. And then it leads into the relevancy of the products that we decide to choose. So let's talk about relevancy as we mentioned it. So, does it contribute to your growth and brand recognition? Which industry metrics and regulations should I consider? Is it going to be accepted by the customer? Is it going to be considered by legislative bodies? What's the scope of my sustainability target? Is it going to be relevant? Do we want a closed loop solution, meaning that we choose a material that comes from our own waste byproducts and then reintroduce it back into the material for the same specific application? Or is it enough to have an open loop circularity scenario where we can give you guys a product that meets your specific needs, that's taken from something as a byproduct, but you use it into another application? Does it reduce plastic waste in landfill? Does it remove our need from intrinsic carbon-based technologies? Does it lower my emissions? How credible is the data? It's important to understand the validation, the life cycle assessment. Can my supplier provide us with life cycle data? And that's where the market is moving, is that we're getting more and more coalescence around life cycle assessment and how to use it to a specific standard. And this is something that's going to be key for you to work with your customers and your supplier partners with, and choosing a resource like Amco that can use our existing resources through our supplier partners, our distribution supplier partners, or through our capital investments into our compounding operations, and being able to give you those intrinsic values and the data that's there so that you can knowingly go to your customer and market it effectively. One other thing to keep in mind is that the auto mobility industry, it recognizes that climate change is a direct result of our choices. And, we need to have more focus on sustainability. And even recent industry meetings that we have, sustainability has been on the docket of nearly every meeting, every organizational, every trade show that we've seen that is referenced to the polymers and plastics market space. So it's something that's coming. It's going to be here for the time being. It's going to be here for the future. It's definitely something that needs to be integrated. We need to get off the starting blocks now to start making an effort to get to those specific goals. And then, last but not least, we need to keep in mind, the reporting requirements. Are they going to change? So we want to make sure that relevancy is not something just where it's relevant today. It needs to be relevant towards tomorrow. It's important to understand the legislative information that's in the market space, what's going to be coming down the pipeline. And it's important to partner with people like Amco so that we can help keep you abreast of what's happening in the market space, what's happening as an overall industry, what's happening from the legislative process, and what laws are going to be affecting you in the near future, so that we can help you get down to a specific relevant granular level in which you can incorporate into your processes. Talking about relevancy, this is just kind of a case study, but this is just to show the group that's with us today that, there is a need out there. So when we talk about having something specific, something measurable, having something attainable, relevant, and also being time bound, this is why we're making capital investments like Blue Polymers. Blue Polymers is the first of its kind that we have in the market space where we can say it tracks and traces product directly from curbside collection. So if you put waste milk bottles or if you put plastic packaging into your recycling bins, we now have a joint venture in place between Ravago, our parent company, and Republic Services, who's the second largest waste management organization in the United States, to develop polymer recycling and distribution. So we can take these products from the curbside to a MRF facility where we sort, segregate the products. There's 80 different ones throughout the country. And then we move it forward as we clean and segregate these particular materials into specialty polymer centers in which we cohabitate the same locations with our compounding capabilities. And what this does is, being specific, we're going to open up nearly 300 million pounds of capacity of post-consumer recycled high-density polyethylene or polyethylene products, polypropylene, and then also recycled PET. Again, it doesn't meet all the demands for the mobility market space, but there's a lot of polypropylene and a lot of polyethylene that's being utilized in that space. We're going to continue to make these particular investments because it's relevant, it's specific, and we have time-bound details that are going to be coming down to the market space. So we expect to have samples available in the market space in March of 2024. Full-scale production is slated to begin in November of 2024, and we look forward to the opportunities that come from the market space. So it's one thing for us to talk about it, but we're putting the money forward, we're putting the capital investments into the market space, and we know it's relevant to the market space, and we know that there's a demand, and we're going to fill that need. Moving into time-bound details, how fast can you achieve this, or when do you want to achieve it by? We need to consider the direct or the indirect impacts that come along with it too as well. So you have to consider using suppliers like Amco, in choosing the product that you're going to be recycling and your products recycling and disposal. So it's important to utilize technologies that are available in the market space. We have to collaborate with market leaders, and we need to reduce the time to market. And then in turn, as we make these understandings, we need to make sure that there's scientific-based details to help you understand where you've begun and where you want to end to meet that within the time settled. So if you want to have at minimum stay within the Paris Accord or the Paris Agreement of keeping global warming temperatures down by 1.5 degrees Celsius, the goal is to at least at minimum reduce your carbon or greenhouse gas emissions by 4.2% annually for 10 years from 2020 to 2030. And then in turn, at minimum, you'll have 42% reduction. So it's being specific, but we're also setting a time frame to get there. You want to set your goals for circularity and to the scope that you need, but we also want to understand how and where and with what you'll recapture the end of life products too as well. That also goes into the brick and mortar discussion. Working with Amco, working with Ravago, that investment into Blue Polymers is, again, our commercial investment into brick and mortar solutions that help in the circularity of the products that you use today. When can reporting change? It's important to understand. So, for example, New Jersey has packaging laws that take effect in 2024, and they're going to need or demand that your products, their packaging, at least 10% of it is recycled content based. By 2037, they're going to demand 50%. So it's understanding those laws and those legislations and how they affect your business on a national and global scale is very important. We want to consider scientific and technological and regulatory trends instead of business specific objections. So, saying, hey, listen, we need more sales. When we think about that, when we look at SMART goals, we need to think about, well, what is this impact? Do I want to add just a general salesperson, or do I want to add somebody that understands sustainability? Or do I want to add an investment to my organization that can help market our brand value proposition further and create relevancy for our customers and for our company as a whole? So it's important to consider the overall goals and the objections or the objectives, but it's also important to prepare for the future. And then developing circularity and sustainability goals. This is probably first and foremost, and probably should be listed first here, is that, we need to start setting goals now. We need to get off those starting blocks. We need to make sure, we can set goals for 15 to 10 to 20 to or even 30 years. And then we need to identify goals that will be needed over the lifetime of your product and its history in the industry itself. Going through those, we move through them fairly quickly because I want to leave some time open for discussion. But again, this goes to reiterate the supplier partners. If we didn't have the supplier partners that we have today, many of which are actually participating with us today, we wouldn't be able to give you the information that we have. We rely on them and the collaborative nature that we have with them to create new products and new applications and support customers like you. So it's important to have these value brand options available and then continue to extend the differentiation of the products that are available to us today. So let's kind of talk about it more specific. So, I'm a learner where I see things visually. So let's talk about, in lighting inside the vehicle itself. We've got multiple directions and again, I can only choose so many based on the time that are there, but all of our supplier partners have solutions that could apply specifically into these applications. But when we look at like in-dash lighting applications, if you want to be specific for an application, let's say that you want to reduce greenhouse gas or have carbon reduction. So that's specific. We need to develop some measurable goals in which you say that I want 25% carbon reduction or I want 100% carbon neutrality. That's going to guide us down the pathway of the technologies that we choose, and it leads into the attainable side. It's important, though, to understand, do we want 25%? Do we want 100% based on the bioattribution that we have? So Covestro has a Macrolon 2407RE, which is an advanced molecular, or not an advanced molecular, it's a bioattributed mass balance polymerized product. The fundamental basis of naphtha and benzene come from cooking oil waste in the fast food industry. It also comes from wood waste from the furniture industry. And all of these technologies are converted into bioattributed benzene, and then bioattributed benzene makes bioattributed phenol, and then bisphenol, and then all of a sudden you have a polycarbonate product. The great news is that it's attainable. So it's available today. It's an existing technology. It's relevant because it equates to Scope 3 emission reduction. And as we talked about before in previous sessions, Scope 3 emissions equate to nearly 70 to 90% of most plastic converters' emissions themselves. So it's important to address these a little bit more aggressively. So that's relevant. And then, making it time bound. It's available today. We can get samples within 2 to 4 weeks. I'm putting these numbers here in a generic term, but, through process evaluation, requalification, and testing, it could take up to 6 months, but we need to set those time bound goals. The good news is with these bioattributed materials, if you're using an existing product today, say Macrolon 2407 standard, this product, the 2407RE, just like the INEOS Styrolution Eco Series products or Celanese Eco products, they are the same as their fundamental sister products. So on a molecular level, we can't tell the difference between the technologies. And as such, requalification should be limited. So that time-bound goal of, say, 6 months could be shortened to almost in an immediate impact if you can certify and make sure that it'll work for your application. And then we have to talk about the logistics and the fundamental capital investment that goes into it. But these are where we need to understand those time-bound restrictions. Another example for you, if we want to talk about mechanical recycled, we've talked a lot about the INEOS Styrolution Turlaran Eco GP22 mechanically recycled 50%. Again, specific Scope 3 reductions, it immediately has impact. Or if your customer says, we want a mechanically recycled post-consumer product that's derived from products that have reached end of life. And we can deliver that with the Eco GP22 MR50. It's measurable. So, 50% post-consumer recycled. It's certified by ISSC. So that not only certifies the recycled content, but it also certifies that the material that we're delivering to you is what we say it is. And in turn, we can reach up to 47% carbon reduction versus traditional ABS products. Is it attainable? Yes, it's a commercial product. There's material in stock today where if you asked us to deliver something, we can deliver it to you within a normal delivery time frame. The technology is commercially available. The product has consistent sourcing from WEEE sourced. So it's coming from a consistent, clean supply base to where the physical properties that we've seen in development phases have been near prime, meaning that it requires little to no adjustments in your processes without sacrificing much, if any, physical properties. So it meets the demand for post-consumer. And if you have a requirement for mandatory minimum recycled content, it helps fulfill those specific needs. And then again, from a time-bound perspective, it's commercially available now. It does take some qualification because it is a different material than your existing base product, your existing prime base virgin materials, but it's available to support in the market space today. And again, this hits specific needs, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound requirements. Another case study for you today. A lot of folks on this call work a lot within the nylon phase, and this is an advanced molecular technology that's offered from BASF. It's their C-cycled. Comes from, they call it their post C2, so that comes from tire waste. So, recycled tires, we can convert into pyrolytic oil. And, we can utilize recycled content. We can reduce carbon reductions. It can give you equal performance and UV stability too, as well as your standard branded products, because it is the same as your Ultramid B3 EG6. It is the same as your Ultramid B3 EG35M type product. So again, depending upon what's needed, we can give you up to 25% reduction in carbon. We have to take a look at this as a case-by-case basis. Depending upon the recycled content, it's 100% based. It depends on the measurable metrics that you want to look at. So if these products traditionally would go to landfill, they may be incinerated. So it's how we set those goalposts on the measurability. So if we were to compare our reductions in carbon versus incineration, well, if we look at pyrolytic oil, which is the building block of this particular product, we can save up to 139% in carbon output per Argonne National Laboratory's study on pyrolytic oil. It's important to understand that, that's significant because there is the vast majority of products that are still out there that go to incineration. But it's all how we set our goalpost, and we need to define those. And Amco is here to help you understand that. These are attainable. They're existing technologies. Again, they come from mixed waste and tire waste, so there is no feedstock constraints that we see to date. But we continue to have more evolution in the supply chain, and it continues to evolve. So it's important to lay those out. Am I going to be able to get supply of 20 million pounds? That's something that needs to be discussed. Or is it going to be only 100,000 pounds? Can that be delivered today? And these are things that we need to discuss. Again, we need to look at the time-bound capabilities, but again, this is a technology that's available in the market space today. Another example for you, specifically with the EV mobility market space, the battery and the charge stations, do we want to use a recycled content, and can I deliver something that will give me scope 3 emissions without having much, if any, physical property reductions? Is it measurable? We definitely have consistency because it's ISSC Plus certified that it has 80% up to 80% post-consumer recycled content. We can yield close to 60% or at 60% carbon reduction based on life cycle assessment. It's attainable, so it's an existing product is available in the market space today. It's relevant because it meets the customer demand for scope carbon reduction. It also is relevant because it has post-consumer recycled content in it. And, the rangings change based on the PCR content. But again, it still gives you the weatherability, the easy processability. So the EXL 8483 RCC, again, is something that's commercially available through our supply partner, Sabic. We have the ability to support commercial needs that are out there, and we can implement this into a specific time frame depending upon what your needs are. So, one thing I want to mention is that, we can talk through case studies, but we have a lot of customers that are just asking, where to start, and some common starting points of where I'd like to kind of just throw out there, because there's a lot of information. And I know a lot of folks look at this, and in some cases, your brain can explode. We need to understand that there's technologies that are there. So start small. Start with something that you know. And the vast majority of the mobility and automotive producers that we work with today, they all use ABS. A mechanically recycled ABS with 50% content exists. Let's look at the Turloran Echo brand. Let's talk about the recycling solutions that we have there. Nylon 6, a lot of folks use nylon from the interior to the exterior and in the mobility market space. There's unfilled, mineral filled, glass filled, and it's available in an advanced molecular recycled technology where we don't have to sacrifice physical properties. Same thing with acetol. POM is commercially available. We have a bioattributed product, so it gets away from that finite supplied carbon-based technologies, and we can give you a 50% greenhouse gas reduction right out of the gate with 97% bioattribution. So, and what we're bringing here is that for the majority of these particular applications, you don't have to sacrifice much, if any, physical properties. With the mechanical recycle, we have to consider some of the propositions and look at the design components. With the nylon 6, there's really no considerations at all because it's going to meet all of your specific demands, but we have to talk about cost and value. And then on the acetol side, we need to understand what's available. What can we be there? But we've got products that are drop-in today, where in most cases, you won't even have to requalify. So this is important for understanding and moving forward in the market space on a smart and specific manner. What I'd like to do is, before we kind of close things up, is I want to challenge you guys, but also I want you to challenge us. Be specific in your challenges. Obtain early initiator discounts for technologies. We're seeing early initiators getting better logistics, better pricing, better supply chain. It's important for you to jump on board today. We can provide you with solutions from polyethylene and polypropylene all the way up to polyetheramides. Sustainable solutions are available now. They're attainable. Be a sustainability industry leader. Be relevant for your customers. With that challenge, we would like to challenge you. We would be willing to give you 1,600 pounds of sustainable material free of charge upon your first commercial orders. Now, this is going to be specific, that we meet within a specific guideline, because if your application only requires 1,600 pounds, that's not viable. But at the end of the day, we want to consider everyone and help source products to you. And we want to help you get off that starting block, because there are constraints and things that are there. So we're here to support you, and we want to give you initiatives. Increase your brand capabilities, be a differentiator, be a leader in sustainable design, receive incentivized discounts by partnering with Amco today. And we're here to support your needs specifically. Before I get into the end of it and we get into the questions, I do want to put out there is that as a culmination to all of this, I will be speaking at the battery show at booth, and we're also going to be at booth 3021. We'll be there September 12th through the 14th. And we're looking forward to meeting some folks in person too as well. So if there's any questions or concerns, please utilize, there'll be a link here for you to utilize for a discount to the conference, and looking forward to further integrating with you and the team. And I'll open it up for questions.
Thanks a lot, Adam. That's a whole lot of really great information in just over a half hour. Because of that, as I stated before, we are going to be sharing these slides along with the recording of the presentation to everybody that's in attendance today. I think that's great, because some of these slides, specifically like the sustainability strategy guideline and a potential properties pathway, will be sent in that presentation and are very helpful. Feel free to share them within your organization. On that, we're going to start with a couple of questions that actually got emailed in with the invites. So the first one, Adam, you definitely touched on it, but what is the best way to find a good application within my organization to start with that will help us be successful?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I think that, any application is a great application to start with. But if we want to be more specific and granular, as we pointed out in that slide, let's start simple. Most mobility automotive manufacturers today use nylon 6. They use acetol and they use ABS. Good starting points. It's important to understand what you can gain today, what type of qualification that's required, what type of sampling would be required to move forward. But these are simple targets to start with. And the great news is that we can supply a multitude of differentiated supply options, not only specific to the ones that we put on our slides before. So, understanding those applications is outstanding. I would urge you to kind of reach out to Amco to help make decisions on what would be a good starting point, but start simple. And then as we start simple, we can become more complex as we move forward. And we're here to help you as an initiator, as a producer, to get to those specific levels more efficiently.
Right. The next one, within automotive, what segment do you see as having the most potential for sustainable materials?
I think there's potential in all segments. So we talk about automotive interiors, exteriors, EV battery design, charging stations. There's opportunities that are there. But one that, I want to kind of tie into specifically to moving forward to the EV battery show coming up is that, we're all aggressively working on these sustainable solutions. As a mobility automotive manufacturer, we've all worked on lightweighting, we've all worked on intelligent design. But now we're starting to market these products that have sustainability. They're marketed with sustainability in mind. We're telling consumers to purchase an EV battery powered vehicle because it's sustainable. Well, we need to consider sustainable material solutions in those products. So it's great to go out and market the sustainability gains in regards to energy consumption, but we need to be incorporating materials that also further exemplify that sustainability. So when we look at the emission reductions, we need to be cognizantly thinking about what goes into the parts, what goes into the molded, extruded, or blow molded components that go into this application, and what can we do to reduce those emissions that are there. So it's important to understand that we're here to support you guys with those particular products, but I see the greatest opportunity moving forward in the EV mobility market space to date. That being said, it doesn't undermine exterior, interior components because these technologies are available for all of them today.
Right. That makes sense. Good input. Third one here. what are the capacity and supply concerns with the large volume applications in automotive?
So right now, from a capacities perspective, our producer and producer partners and we ourselves continue to make capital investments. The good news is that there's commercial capacity available today. So it's all based on the application. It's all based on the material subset. We have a ways to go largely when we talk about the commoditized materials like polypropylene, polyethylene, but there are advancements in those technologies where we have today ready solutions that can get you to where you need to be. This is why we see as an organization making capital investments to, companies like Blue Polymers is key because we need to meet the demand for post-consumer recycled content. And with that, we'll be generating nearly 300 million pounds of polypropylene and polyethylene post-consumer recycled products that can be available in a natural format, which is really not seen in the market space today. Beyond that, with our supplier partners, there's continued capital investment moving forward. So, some of our supplier partners, like Ineos Styrolution, want to have close to 1 billion pounds of sustainable materials available into the market space in the very near future. We see extending things out there today from Chevron Phillips on their advanced molecular recycle to having close to 1 billion pounds of polyethylene available in a sustainable fashion, advanced molecular recycled content by 2030. We're still in the early stages of initiation, but the great news is that there is available product today for all applications. We have to look at each application in a specific manner, but there is capital investment that's going to continue to expand the capability. But the great news is today that I'd like everyone to walk away from is that there is supply available now. There's supply available to develop in your applications, and conversion can be easy depending upon the route and the pathway that we create.
Yeah, that's great news addressing the concerns people have, with plastics today. It's great to see that effort's being made. I do have one more question. I want to remind everyone that they do still have a question. There's a Q&A tab in your toolbar to use. If you don't see it, click on the 3 dots above the more and your Q&A will be there. What I have here is, does a component manufacturer have to have ISSC certification to get credit with the OEMs?
So that's an important one to talk about because, ISSC, we've talked about this in essentially all 3 different webinars. And, really ISSC is important from a third-party validation perspective to show the chain of custody of the materials. Do you, as a producer, need to have ISSC to use an ISSC Plus certified product? No, it's not required today. But it's incumbent upon what claims you want to make. So we can use these ISSC certified materials and say that they are using recycled content or bioattributed content. But when you start to get into specificity of percentages, so, we all talk about greenwashing. And so without actually having a specific goal of saying, my product contains 25% recycled content, or my product contains 10%. When you start to get into those specific finite numbers, having a third-party authority vet that information and being able to provide that chain of custody is key, especially if you get challenged by a legislative body. So, in a legal perspective, having third-party validation goes a very long way. So if you want to be specific and say that you have 25%, 50%, 100% recycled content, having a third-party vetting system is important. ISSC Plus is by far the most commonly accepted. Now, when I look at registrations for ISSC in North America, there's less than 100 converters, so it's very small today. But we are seeing people actively, intrinsically getting involved in this process. We are seeing people going out there and becoming certified. We're happy to help and consult and discuss what it means to be ISSC certified. But at that same time, you can also have a third-party organization like Underwriter Laboratories, UL, or have a third-party organization like SGS or SCS Global come in and audit and make those claims and validate those claims for you. It may just be more economically effective to work through a globally accepted system as opposed to having to do it on a case-by-case basis. So, to answer that question, is it required to use these materials? No. To answer, further that question and take it a step further, is it essential for me to make percentage claims? Something like that would be essential. It's not essential for it to be ISSC, but you need to have some sort of third-party validation phase to get those claims there for you. And Amco, we're here to help you with that. So if we're struggling to figure out how we can make claims or what we can and can't say, reach out to your representation. We're here to support you in that process. But having a consistent supply chain and having consistency from inception all the way to fruition of production of your parts is going to be key. And being able to show either a mass balance audit of where that material was and where it started and how it got converted and then how it ended up in your customer's hands is very good from an empirical value perspective. It's important from a scientific based data recognition. It's important to also prove that, you know, the material is what you say it is. And in doing so, it helps to extend your brand capability. It helps to extend your capacities, and it also gives you an edge up versus the competition that's in the market space today.
Great. Thank you, Adam. That's all the questions I have so far. I want to reiterate, if you want to talk to somebody about setting sustainable goals, talking about sustainable options you may have, or helping you just decide, you know, what's the best way to move forward with sustainability, please reach out to your Amco representative. I'm sure you can vouch after listening to Adam. You know, we have a wealth of knowledge. It is within our DNA. It's what we were founded on. So we do believe a lot in this and look forward to talking to you all. I greatly appreciate all your time. Have yourselves a great day.
Yeah, and one other thing to throw out there to the group too, as well, is, you know, feel free to visit us in person. You know, we're here, we're available, we're mobile, we're here to support your specific needs. So, you know, we look forward to engaging. We look forward to kind of helping you build the specificity and helping you reach your goals. So we're here to support you, and I look forward to the future discussions.
Great point. Thank you, Adam. Thanks, everyone.
We'll wrap it up. Thank you, guys.